Recording. I'll start. Okay, I think the recording started. So why don't we get started with today's session? So thanks everyone for joining. This is the first session we're going to be doing that is going to be presented by a member, actually, not by me. And it's going to be discussing actual practical applications of some of the option theory we discussed in videos. In case you missed any of those videos, they're available on the YouTube channel. And Anita can send around a link to that on the chat. The only thing I want to talk about before this session, Sanjay, who's going to present, he may discuss specific option positions that he's taken. In no way, shape, or form should you view that as an endorsement by the club on those positions. Like we always say, always do your own homework before engaging in any specific strategies in the equity markets and derivative markets. That goes without saying, but I just wanted to put that as a strong reminder to everyone. Everyone, even the best investors, make mistakes, and more important than the specific positions Sanjay is using are the principles and how he's implementing them and the strategies and why and what the logic is behind some of his positions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sanjay, and I hope you guys find this session really useful. Great. Sanjay, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sahil. So I'm going to start, and I'll just let me share my screen first. Okay, before this. Okay, so can you all see my screen? Sahil, you can unmute and tell me, can you see this?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so what we are going to cover today is, first I'm going to tell you why I spent some time listening to the theory that Bharosa Club had done on covered calls and cash covered puts, and decided to spend the time to try and see what I could do with them. So the first thing is on the why. I felt that, it's possible for me to add 1% a month or 12% per annum as supplemental returns to my portfolio. So it will be additional returns. I mean, my portfolio could go up or down depending on the market, but with these kind of strategies, I could add about 12% per annum, which is nice because if I had a portfolio of 5 lakhs, then 12% would be about 60,000 rupees a month. And if it was bigger, then it would be better. So I decided in the beginning of August to try this out. And I've only tried it out for a month. And then this September is my second month. But I'll show you how I did this. So that was the logic of saying, can I make some supplemental income without keeping the risk too high? And at the end of this thing, I will also talk about what are some of the risks, because there's no free lunch. Like if you want to make 12%, you are going to be taking some risks in there. So what we're going to do in this session is really talk about how I used covered calls and cash covered puts. Okay. Again, like what Sahil said, is that with options, the risk of drowning, like getting into the deep end is very real. So you have to be very cautious. And like if you're swimming, swim in shallow waters, make sure that you understand what you're doing. And hopefully the session will help you towards that. And then only try and become more aggressive. So cash covered calls, cash covered puts and covered calls are some of the least risky options, and they are used mainly for trading, not for trading, but for hedging, or for, like I said, making supplemental income. But even there, you can go horribly wrong. So please be careful. Okay, with that disclaimer, I will actually walk you through some of the screens that I used and some of the things that I learned. So this is going to be a very, very practical session. And then, like I said, I'll cover the risks and I'll also give you the bottom line, and something that you also need to think about is the taxes. Okay, so that's really an overview of what we're going to cover today. Okay. So now okay, I will now show you what happened in August. Okay, so this looks really complex, but I'll just go through it step by step. So the first thing is the positions that I took. So I took 7 positions, and the ones in orange, the 4 in orange, these are cash covered puts, and the 3 in green are covered calls. Okay, so let's take one sort of put. We'll take Reliance because that's pretty much in this thing. And so I said that I am comfortable buying Reliance at 2000. And the option was going to be expiring on 20th August. So if Reliance was below 2000 on 20th August, this put would be in the money, and I would have to buy the stock at 2000. Now, as it happened in August, none of these 7 positions that I took ended up being in the money. So they all expired, and I pocketed this 3,28,845, which was the premium. Okay. But you know, when you actually enter into these positions, you should be pretty prepared for these puts to be assigned to you, in which case you will have to buy them at expiry or sell your stock at expiry, or you will have to close them. So you can close the positions at any time with a loss or a gain, as the case might be. So during the month, you can close your positions. But at least the strategy I was using was that I intended to hold till expiry. That is because of the way that I was using it. So in case of a covered call, like let's take Britannia, I was ready to sell Britannia at 4,200 if it reached that. So I actually held Britannia. So here, if you look at the number of contracts that I did 5 contracts. The lot size of each contract in India is different. So in the case of Britannia, it was 200 shares. So that's why you should see this minus 1,000. So because the minus is there because I sold. So I sold this call. I had 1,000 shares of Britannia. So that's why it was a covered call. So if Britannia went up to 4,200, I would have to sell my shares of Britannia at 4,200. Now, the average price that I got for these was 38.11, and the premium that I got was 38,110. 4,200 is just the strike price. So I've just multiplied this 4,200 by 1,000 to calculate the notional value of this contract, right? Because when I take my return, which is this 38,110, I can calculate it on the notional. So that's what this 0.91% is. So that is the return on the notional in there. And you'll see that for something like Hindustan Lever, the return on the notional, which I selected based on my strike price, which was 2,400, you know, we basically ended up with only a 0.51% because it's a less volatile share. So the premium that you get is a function of the strike price. It's a function of the volatility of that stock. And you know, so if the stock is more volatile, and of course of the overall market. And finally, it's also a function of demand and supply, because if you know, Hindustan Lever was doing an acquisition or coming out with some new product or something, and there's some rumor in the market, and they expect the price to go up very high, then you know, you may get a lot of premium when you sell a call. So anyway, this is essentially what I did. And you can see that the notional in my case was 3.36 crores or so. And the premium was 328,846. And I made like 0.98% effectively. Okay, so that 1% a month that I was talking about, at least in August, I kind of made that. Okay, now what you also have to see is that I put this in red here, this Hindustan Lever 3600. The reason I put it in red was because I was doing this, relatively new. I wasn't very experienced with actually entering these trades. So though I had 1800 shares of Hindustan Lever, I by mistake did it twice. So I ended up with 3600, and then I didn't close the position because I felt it's okay, it's not going to get the same. But that's also why you have to be very careful. The other mistake or kind of mistake that I made was that I had in my overall portfolio, I had about 1.5 crores in cash. So if you add the notionals of the puts that I sold, they come to about 1.62 crores. Now, you could say that not all of them are going to be, assigned, but you never know because, like on one day, the market can move tremendously. So even if you're one day from expiry, so I should not have gone beyond this 1.52, but I had some gold holdings, etc., which I could have sold. But technically, so when I'm doing this in September, I've been careful not to make these mistakes again. Okay. So it's not that I don't have positions where, so I also have some shares like Dixon and Deepak Nitrite and so on and so forth, which do not have options on them. So you don't have options on every single share, neither Gold Bees, which is a gold holding that I have, there are no options on it, and Liquid Bees is of course cash, so there are no options on it. So, but barring that, all the shares which are only three, the ones in green, where there were calls, options, I sold covered calls on them. And these four, which are the puts, I actually sold puts on these because I like these shares and I'm willing to buy them at these prices should they fall to this. So this brings us to the why question, like how do you make the supplemental income? You make it on holdings that you have because you're ready to part with those holdings at a certain price if there's a sharp run up. So you sell covered calls. And if you have cash like I do sitting around waiting for it to be redeployed in the market because I'm not very sure. So I want to buy Reliance, but I'm not willing to pay 2,100 or 2,200 for it. So I can wait for this. So I can sell a put and I'm ready to buy it at 2,000. Now, if this thing gets exercised at 2,000 and I've sold it for 3,114, then I'm actually going to buy it at 2,000 minus 3,114, which is the premium that I got. Okay. Okay. So with this, I'm just going to now move on to the actual screens that are there on my trading portfolio, because I just want to show you, since this is a practical session, on how you would do it. So here, now let's say I want to sell a put on Infosys, because Infosys is trading at about 919, and I want to sell this put at 900. So I do INFY, which is the symbol there. Then I put an SEP, September, then 900. And here you can see this 900 put has come up. Now there are very many things here. If you see, I could buy, I could sell, I could look at the chart. So let's just look at the chart. Okay, so this is the thing where you can see with the chart, and you can see that this particular put contract was selling for around 18. It's now selling for 1560. So this can decide for you what price you might want to sell this put at if you decide to sell it. So that's the benefit of looking at the chart. There's also something called market depth. which actually shows you what the bids and offers are, what the high price, etc. is. If you look at the videos that Sahil had done on the theory, it showed you on money control, but here is my brokers thing where I'm showing you, and it shows that the open interest is 840,000 contracts. So there's a lot of open interest. The market is very deep for this kind of thing, okay? So, okay, so that is, and then if you wanted to do a sell, I'm going to show that to you separately because I'll go to orders, and I've started using this thing called GTT, which is a good till triggered order. So I'm just going to go there and I will say create a GTT. So we were saying in fee, okay, and September 900 PE. Okay, so this is what it's showing, and then it says create GTT. So I've got to create GTT. There is something called single and one cancels another that I'll leave for you guys to understand. But I have to be careful that I put sell here and it becomes orange in my case. So it's very easy to make a difference and do buy, which is blue. Right? With sell, and it suggests a trigger price. So this option was selling for 1565. So it moves it 10% and suggests a price that you should place this order at 1715, but you can change it, right? So suppose I wanted to do 19, I can type 19, and then this is the limit price. So it says, okay, you can put it at 1950. Suppose you want to sell it at 1950. So your limit price has to be a little higher than the trigger price. And you'll notice the contract here is 1200. So you can't do like options on Infosys for 100 shares. You have to do 1200 shares, okay? So this basically brings us to the point that if you have a very small portfolio or you have very little cash or you have very little stock, then you may not be able to do options because of these lot sizes. So let's say you had this, because now this 1200 into 900, okay, is basically going to be what? It's going to be about 10 lakh rupees, right? So you should have 10 lakh rupees to invest in Infosys. Now, if you want to do more than that, like let's say you want to do 40 lakhs, then you can multiply this by 4. So that will be 4,800. But you can't do 4,000, right? It has to be in multiples of 1,200, right? And then you can hit this, and that will place the order. Markets are not open, so I can even place it. So I'll just say place. Okay, so this is now got placed. And then I can come in here and say, I want to delete this order because I don't really want this order. So I just delete. Okay, or you could modify it and you can watch as the whole trading goes. Okay. So if you then look at now your positions, and the only reason I'm showing you this is that these are the actual orders that I've placed. So I can look at this anytime during the trading day and see whether I'm gaining money or losing money. So if you look at Bharti Airtel, I placed an order and currently I'm losing money. So if I was really good, and I picked exactly the right thing, then I would have sold this put at 1615 or higher, and then I would have been making money. So this keeps moving because the option has time value and it has intrinsic value. So as the time goes to expiry, most of these, like say, if you see Britannia 4100, now it may be quite unlikely that Britannia is going to hit 4100, but still the last traded price is 17 rupees. Now, as you grow closer to the expiry, which in this case is September 24th, you will see that this time value keeps dropping. Okay, if it looks like this call is not going to be assigned. So this is what you will see, and that's and closer to this, the things will all become green. If the thing, but here, if you look at Muthoot, which is 1100 put, you'll see that I'm currently losing 58,000 if I was to close this position right now. And Muthoot is trading at 1122.90 currently, right? So the chances that it will be trading below 1100 on 24th September are reasonably high, but Muthoot could take off, right? In which case, it's not going to get assigned, right? So that is what this whole screen here can help you do. Now, the other very important thing that you have to understand in options is margin. So here, which Sahil talked about, but if you look at my margin screen, so I have a huge amount of margin available. I've only used 56 lakhs. I have 3.9 crores available, and I have cash of so much and stuff. And I also have collateral in liquid funds of 1.37 crores and collateral in equity of 3.3 crores, right? So now how does this all happen, right? So I'm just going to show you this thing, if I can figure out where this is. Yeah. So in my case in Zerodha, I can go to the console and this shows me all my holdings which are there. Now, if you see next to the holdings, you'll see this lock and this 9250 here. So that means that this 9250 shares of UPL that I have done, I have pledged these, okay, for margin. Okay, the shares still remain in my Demat account. This is a change which just happened on September 1. And, you know, they don't go to the broker's account or anything. But if I am trading options, the broker is liable for my trades in case I don't honor them. So therefore, this margin is very important. And what you will notice is that closer to the expiry, if you haven't closed your option position, the broker will almost double the amount of margin, right? So people get really surprised. Suddenly the margin jumps up and you know, then they have a problem. In my case, of course, because I have a huge amount of margin, that will not be a problem. So this is what, and if I go in here, it just tells me that, you know, I can unpledge this because I've already pledged all. But this is where you can pledge or unpledge. And I saw no problem in pledging everything I have, right? So because I can always unpledge it and sell. So I said, why worry about it? Why try to optimize this? I don't even understand exactly how this margin is calculated and all that. But I said, okay, as long as I have a huge amount of margin, I'm comfortable. Now, one last thing is that you have to prepare for expiry if you are following the same strategy that I am. So in the case of the covered call, it's not a problem, right? Because you have the stock. So if you are assigned the stock, that stock will be sold at that price and that will be the end of it. So that's not a great amount of preparation. Okay. But for the cash covered side, now I did not want to keep like 1.5 crores or something sitting in cash, earning nothing. So I actually bought liquid Ds and then I assigned those liquid Ds. Now what's going to happen is that if some like Muthoot gets assigned, then the broker is not going to say, oh, you have liquid Ds, I'll sell it. The problem is that the Indian systems are not that intelligent. Okay, so you have to actually say on the Monday of expiry week, you have to unpledge these liquid Ds. It takes 1 day to unpledge them. Then you have to sell them on Tuesday. By the time the money comes into your account, it will be 2 days. So Thursday is expiry day. So there will be enough money, cash sitting in there. And that cash will be used to buy the stock. Now, if you don't have that cash sitting there and you don't do anything with your option, then I think there are some penalties and all that. But I have not gone into a great amount of detail on that because I know pretty much that I'm not going to do that. Okay, there are also reports which are available here for you. So if you look here, there are things like your trade book, your P&L and so on and so forth, which you can get familiar with and use. And then there are these reports on the funds. So there's one report here which you should pay careful attention to. Now, at least in Zerodha and my broker, every option trade that I do, it's not free. I have to pay 20 rupees as commission. But since I had only 7 positions, it's not per contract, it's per trade, and it has nothing to do with the value. I just paid 140 rupees, which I'm not bothered about. But the thing is that if you don't have enough margin, and the margin is required both in terms of cash, so liquid Bs qualify for cash and equity. So if you don't have enough cash or equity, then you pay interest. And a lot of people I know who have been trading options for years really don't know this, because they don't really look at their charges and everything. Maybe once in tax year or something they look at it. But there is an interest statement, and you can actually view it, say, for the previous 30 days, let's say. And if you view it, then you will see that I have paid an interest amount of 2908.46 because of some things relating to expiry, where I had to liquidate these liquid Bs and all this kind of back and forth stuff. So this is something that you have to know, because there is, so if you're really particular, you're going to try and see, okay, I made so much money, but I paid so much in terms of costs. Okay, so these are some of the practical things that I wanted to show you. Now I'll just come to the risks part, and I'll tell you the bottom line, and then we'll close it and move into Q&A. Okay, so what happens is that the biggest problem in covered calls and cash covered puts is not that you are going to, because you already decided that you are willing to sell the stock at this price or buy the stock at this price, right? But the problem occurs when, say, suppose I am selling a put on Reliance. Okay, so let's say Reliance a couple of months back was trading at, say, 1,000 rupees. Now I wanted to buy Reliance. So I said, okay, no, I'm not going to buy the stock. So let's say I have 10 lakh rupees. I'm going to actually buy puts. So I'll get some 20 rupees, 30 rupees, whatever it is per share. Okay, and I'll buy the put. So Reliance goes up, the put won't be assigned. I'm quite happy. Then I say, okay, now I'll sell the put at 1100, then 1200. But Reliance keeps going up. So I missed the move from 1000 to 2000 because I've not bought the share. I've just been getting these premiums of 20, 30 rupees. So the problem in puts is, cash covered puts, is that you may miss out on the upside of a stock that you wanted to buy because you did some really good analysis. You thought it's going to go up really well, but you just bought the put. You didn't buy the share, right? So that is something that you've got to keep in mind, that there's no free lunch. You may feel very happy that you're making this 1%, but you may actually lose out because you didn't buy the stock. Same way on the cash covered puts, you, like, say, if I went and sold Britannia at 4,200 and then it went up to, say, 5,000, then I've lost the upside so the main risk in these strategies is that you can potentially lose upside. But otherwise, in a sideways market, or if you're just trying to make some additional income and you are selling your puts and your cash covered puts and your covered calls with some judicious thing, you're saying, no, I don't think Hindustan Lever is going to run up like massively. So I'm not really taking up a huge risk, and you want to make this additional income. It's a pretty good strategy to use. Okay, so that was the thing. So bottom line, I think for me, while I've done this for just August and September, seems it's looking good. So my objective of, say, making 12%, which in my case, given the size of my portfolio, may translate to sort of 50 lakhs or so, looks okay. But still, I'm pretty watchful because I know I'm new at this game. And so I'm watching and learning. And at some stage, if I feel like I'm going to abort the strategy, I'll abort it. But just now it's looking good. The last thing is taxes, right? So taxes in India on options are a little complicated. So you need to check with your CA. It probably has to be declared as business income or something. So it's not a big deal, but you will pay taxes at your marginal tax rate. But the way I look at it, there's no harm in paying taxes if you make money, right? So that's okay. I will pay the taxes. Okay, that's all I had. In the questions and answers, if there are things that I missed out, we can cover them. So I'll turn that over to Sahil now. He may want to add a few things or whatever before we go into the Q&A. Over to you.
Yeah. Great session, Sanjay. I think this was a very helpful way to actually see how the theory is put into practice with an actual brokerage account open, and you can see the positions that Sanjay took and all these things. So I think really, really nice session. Thank you so much for doing this for our members. With that, let's jump to the Q&A. So we have some questions that are filtered in. So let's start with, can you discuss why you decided to employ an option strategy versus investing the extra cash in the stock market?
Yeah, so basically I was worried that the stock market may fall, I wasn't very comfortable in just deploying. So because, I had watched the stock market run up from the March lows to wherever it is now. And the run up was very sharp. So I kind of had missed some of that run up. And now I was sitting on all this cash, right? So I was a bit worried that, we may have a second down leg and stuff like that. So I had looked at these stocks which had run up a lot. Like I said, Reliance had run up from 1,000 to 2,000, right? So I was saying, okay, I don't think I can wait till it comes back to 1,000. It may never come back to 1,000 because it's raised all this money. It's got all this, it's removed a lot of debt from its thing and all that. But, would it come down from 2,200 to 2,000? Possibly. So I would like to do it as a put rather than a cash covered put rather than buying the stock outright. So similar analysis for the other puts that I did rather than buying the stocks directly. But great question, because it's a very logical question, saying why not just buy the stock? Why do all this complicated put short?
You're writing an equal number of calls and puts. What does this imply about your overall view of the market?
Right. So I don't really have an overall view of the market, right? Because I can't predict whether the market will go up or down, right? But my thing is that, look, I have these stocks which I hold. So I hold Britannia, I hold Hindustan Lever, I hold UPL, right? So I hold reasonable number of shares. So now I can do nothing, in which case I will just get a dividend. And I want to hold these shares. I actually want to hold them for at least 5 years because I'm a buy and hold investor. I'm not a trader, right? So I'm not looking to get in and out and all that. So given that strategy, what do I do? Right? So I said, okay, I'm willing to do covered calls. Now, when I did this covered call on UPL, for instance, on the last day on August, this call was actually very close to, during the day it was moving above 500, falling below 500. So I wasn't very sure that it would get assigned or not. So I had to think in my mind, suppose it gets assigned. I still think UPL is a very good company, something that I want to hold for 5 years. So what happens if it gets assigned at 500? So then I decided, fine, I will sell it at 500. And then maybe I will do a put at 500 again and buy it. I will just buy it straight or whatever, So I was prepared for that eventuality, right? That I could also close that position, right? I could have taken a loss on that position if I was very keen not to get rid of UPI, right? So it's not that I have a view on the markets. What is there is that this is my existing book. I want to make my book actually all long, right? Where I don't have that much cash. I want 80% of my cash to be deployed in the market and keep 20% for rebalancing and things like that. So that's my strategy. So gradually, I will only be doing covered calls and no cash covered calls.
How does the margin work for a covered call? Can I satisfy the entire requirement with the shares I own?
No, so as far as I'm aware, this is a great question, because at least in the US, where I also have done options, the brokers, if you have the stock, they're able to identify it and they're able to link it to the option. So you're able to satisfy. But as far as I'm aware, in India, they're not able to do that, right? So whether you have a covered call or you have a naked call, they don't know, right? And they just treat it the same way. But because you're pledging it, now, yes, one other important thing, that when you pledge the share, they do what is called a haircut. So, like one of the stocks, which is a relatively small stock that I own, which is called Dixon, there the haircut is 60%, right? So basically only 40% of the stock's value gets used for margin. So a stock like Britannia or something, it would be 80%. So even if you have, say, and you're trying to do your full thing, you won't be able to meet the margin requirement by just pledging Britannia, because it will only be 80%.
So the margin requirement is often less than the notional. Why aren't you calculating the return based on the margin requirement rather than the notional?
Yeah, see, because I don't want to really play very close to the edge, right? Like, so I could theoretically say that I could use all this margin and et cetera, and then my return would be much lower. But my thing is, look, I want to play on having a very large margin cushion because I'm a conservative guy. And the thing is that why I use the notional to calculate is to actually figure out saying that, look, if there's a stock which is not very volatile, if I'm being too conservative on the strike price, so I can calculate how much am I making. So if I don't make at least 0.5% per month, which is like 6% per year, then maybe it's not worth selling that option, or I may say, okay, fine, I'll sell it. So also when I look at which strike price am I going to sell, I look at which option contracts are active, where there's depth in the market, and then decide which option contract. So I look at news, I look at some of these other things, and then decide exactly what I'm going to do in terms of the strategy. And the strategy is not something which is like a cookie cutter strategy, which I just apply every month, like a quantitative kind of thing. There is some thought into what goes into an option strategy, the options that I sell each month.
Another question from Pankaj, good question. How do you gauge the strike price? You can buy options at right options at different strike prices. How are you in your mind for your puts and calls, figuring out what strike price to write?
Yeah, so like I said, on the cash covered puts, my main thing is that am I willing to buy this stock at that particular price, right? So if I take like Reliance, I said I'm ready to buy Reliance at 2000, okay? So that's easy. I mean, if you are ready to, I'm ready to buy Muthoot at 1100 or Airtel at 525 or whatever, because I've been watching the trading, I've looked at the charts, etc., etc. So in the case of the puts, it's fairly easy to decide what kind of strike price. Then I will again look at what is the market doing, what's the depth, what's the open interest at these various strike prices and so on and so forth. And if all of that looks okay, am I missing something? Is the market sensing something that I'm not sensing? If none of those sanity checks get violated, then I will decide that that's the strike price that I'm going to look at. I'll also look at the option chain, as it's called, and see that, okay, for a 1900 Reliance, what kind of premium would I get? For a 2100 Reliance, what kind of premium would I get? And a 2000 Reliance, what kind of premium would I get? And then I'll decide the strike price. Now, in the case of calls, the thing is, you can be very aggressive, right? Like you can say, like UPL, okay, it's 500. I've sold in September a 550 call, which is 10% above. So UPL has to go 10% higher in terms of the price. So I normally was at least previously using like 10% because I don't want to make too much money. I just want to be conservative. I really don't want the calls to get assigned. So I do this. But now what I'm finding in UPL is pretty volatile. And, it might even hit 550, but it's already it's gone up from 450 to 500. Now it might go up from 500 to 550, in which case I'm okay. I'll sell it, at 550. So that is the kind of analysis you have to do in terms of trying to stock by stock, say what is the price that you're willing to sell at.
So Pankaj had a follow-up saying more so on naked calls. How do you determine the strike price?
Okay, so naked calls I don't do. Okay, so I basically say that, at least for my thing, and this session is only on covered calls. And
so I can take a little crack at this. So Pankaj, I have used naked derivatives in the past, more so on the put side, and sometimes also on the call side. It is a very, very risky strategy because, as you probably know, option is extremely leveraged because you're only getting a little bit of premium for a lot of shares. So the contract size is a lot higher relative to the capital that is being exchanged in the contract. So my strong advice is for beginners and even intermediate investors, do not mess around with naked options because it's very, very easy to blow up your position and your entire portfolio if you're not careful with naked options. But since you asked the question, in the past when I've done naked option trading, and this was in the context of a hedge fund, not my own personal portfolio, but in a hedge fund when we were looking at using these naked derivatives, what I used to do was I would use them only in circumstances around earnings calls where there was a particular catalyst that I had in mind. So let's say there was a stock that I thought was overvalued and I expected it to release a bad quarter because of whatever analysis I had done. Sometimes I would buy a put at a certain price, right? And that price, that strike price, I would determine based on how much I thought the stock price would adjust after that news. So similarly, in a call, on a naked call type of contract, you do a similar sort of assessment based on how much you expect the price of the stock to move based on whatever you're forecasting for the underlying security and why the news that you expect to hit the market. But it really is a risky strategy. A lot of the puts that we used went to zero value because we were wrong about it. Some of them we made lots of money. So that's kind of how
and I would just supplement that if you are moving to doing naked options, then first do naked options on buys. Don't do naked options on sells.
Correct.
Because sells, your loss is potentially unlimited, right?
Yeah.
You lose your shirt on this. On buys, you're just limited to losing whatever premium you have paid. right? So if you expect that a stock is going to run up a lot because you have some inside information or you have some news or whatever it is, right? Then you can buy the calls. So worst is it will not run, right?
And you lose your premium.
Then you lose your premium. But if on the other hand, you sell a call and those, it runs up phenomenally,
You can lose
lose.
infinite amount of money depending on how much the stock goes up. So agree 100% with Sanjay's advice there. Naked options, I've actually never written a naked option. I've always bought naked options when when I've engaged in any kind of naked option trading. In terms of Pankaj, your follow-up question, okay, but do you not take support of some charts? So charts can be helpful. They certainly can be helpful. My personal view on the chart side of things is that investing, if it were as formulaic as charts, then machines would be totally dominant in investing. And certainly the charts can tell you things. They can tell you, support levels and resistance levels and all those things, and they do matter. But it's gonna be of limited value in terms of telling you what direction a stock's gonna move. What it can do, to your point, is it can help you identify interesting strike prices. So if, for example, you see the charts and you see there's a support level at a certain price, you may be more interested in writing options around that strike level. So, or buying options around that strike level. So that is a good point. You can look at the charts for that as well. But charts for direction, on your follow-up comment, I don't really recommend. In my personal investing experiences, charts have been a very limited utility in trying to figure out if a stock's going to go up or down.
Yeah. So one other point I'd like to add to this is that, in options, you're making very, very little money. And one bad move can wipe out like a year's gain that you do. So you have to be careful when you do this. Like, for instance, a stock Zoom, we are using Zoom now. It went up 41% in one day. No chart is going to tell you that, right? In terms of this kind of thing. So, so some people, if they're on the wrong side of that trade, will get caught with their pants down. After that 41%, in the last 2-3 trading sessions, it's gone down 23% or something like that, right? So these are wild swings, that can happen. And if you get caught in one of these with naked, it's like being naked when you're going in the in the ocean and the tide runs out.
So Pankaj, you had a follow-up comment saying, but it's exceptional cases like Zoom. You're right. It is not every stock that acts like Zoom.
Yeah.
But the rule of investing is generally everything looks good until suddenly it doesn't. So you could look at a stock like Valiant Pharmaceuticals, for example. This was a stock that every hedge fund in the US wanted to own. Stock just kept going up and up and up and up and up and up until suddenly a fraud was uncovered, and that stock within a day was down 70% and then ended up going down 90%, right? And hedge funds lost their shirts on this. So generally in investing, the losses hurt you, big losses hurt you much, much more than big gains help you, because 100% wipeout of your capital, you can't recover that capital, so whereas a 100% gain on capital, you can definitely lose that again. So advice is generally to try to avoid disasters in investing.
Okay, there's one
can do that, then
I want to show you all on this, which is a functionality that at least Zerodha has. So I'm just going to go to positions again. I've shared my screen. I think you all should be able to see it. Okay, and there's something here which you see called run risk check. Okay, so this Zerodha has some arrangement with somebody called Sensibull. Okay, and Sensibull gives you trading ideas, etc., if you want to sign up for that. But I don't know how good they are. I haven't. But this run risk check is kind of interesting. So I've run it on my option positions. and it's telling me the probability that this option will end, that the strike price will be hit. So for Bharti, it says it's 65%. For Britannia, it says 88.93. That it won't be hit, right? So it's Britannia, then Dr. Reddy, etc. So you can look at this and see what's the probability that my strike will be hit or not. Again, this is some calculation that somebody is doing using some formula, but it can give you some idea about whether you want to close the position or not. So if you are into things like this and you want to experiment, then there are providers like Sensible and so on and so forth that you could also consider using.
Yeah, and if I can just give some thanks for the session, Sanjay. I think that's it in terms of the questions we had directly related to your session. If I can just add a little bit of color for people in terms of option strategies. One of the most important things to evaluate when you're writing the option is how much you're getting paid for that option. So as Sanjay was saying, that 1% fee he was calculating, that's really the critical number that you need to care about, right? Because there are lots of circumstances where you can find, I have this extra capital, I don't know what to do with it. Do I put it in an FD? Do I invest in the stock market? Do I buy some bonds? Do I buy some GSECs? There's a lot of things you can do with your money. And the key question when you're analyzing these option strategies is figuring out how much these strategies are paying you. So when Sanjay was calculating that 1% on his notional, that's really the important crux of the number. What is he getting paid for his strategy? And how does that rate of return compare to his other options in the marketplace? And it's really a very interesting time for options right now. It's quite, if you can earn 1% per month on option strategy, that's a pretty high rate of return, because compounded, that will be, north of, 13, 14%. Annually, and that's a very, very lucrative rate of return, but it's unusual. The reason you're seeing those levels of option premia today is because there's a lot of volatility in the market and the VIX is relatively high, and people don't know which way this market's going to go. Is it going to rip higher? Is it going to rip lower? There's a lot of uncertainty right now. So it's a very intriguing time to investigate dabbling in options, doing it in a controlled way, and making sure that you dip your feet in and get comfortable with it before doing anything rash. As Sanjay was showing, he's a very experienced option trader, and even he made mistakes in his trading. So this is a dangerous area to make mistakes. So you want to be very, very careful when you're trying to practice these strategies, but great time to be looking at them. And hopefully the session has built your confidence. Any parting words, Sanjay, for the members that have joined us?
No, I think the session will be recorded. So for those who are new, maybe some of these tips are useful because this was really a how-to session, not a theory session. So even the how-to elements of this thing are quite important to understand and use.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you next week.